I just go by Blvck Astronaut. It's kind of like my art thing. But everybody, like, you know, homies just call me NATO or Nate. And, you know, I think it's good to have like a artistic persona, you know, just something to like dump all your creative energy into, like a vessel. So, as far as creative arts, I started drawing. I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. My dad, he's a pretty good illustrator, and he drew a lot of comics and stuff. You could tell he was like really Jack Kirby inspired, just like the stuff he would do. And I used to bug him all the time and make him draw me stuff all the time. I think he just had like a long day at work one time. I was bugging him, getting on his nerves. He said, well, why don't you draw something? And I did, and it was decent. It was like a bootleg, like Batman kind of joint with like a machete. I don't know. It's pretty sick, but yeah, I just remember like I kind of realized at that point that like, oh yeah, like you can like make things two-dimensionally. You can make whatever you want, and that's kind of where that clicked. About like 6 years old or so. I took no art classes because Albuquerque's just, you know, we have a hard time, man. Like we're really underfunded in terms of like education, so it's really hard to get in, and you know, it's really hard for people to like have their passions be fostered. So I just kind of had to figure it out. I had one art teacher when I was in like middle school as part of like it was like a club, like an after school thing. Yeah, this guy, Mr. Kamora, he was cool, man. He did a lot of watercolor. He did like classic cars. Turned me on to just like, you know, I guess process, you know what I mean? Instead of just drawing and doing whatever and having it be a mess, he was like, oh, there's like a process. Like if you do this step first and then the rest will follow. You know, it's really aesthetic. I'm not super like deep with it. I'm just like, what would look really dope, or like what do I think would be something I would like to see. I make shit that like I would like to see, you know what I mean? Sometimes I just paint shit because like somebody else painted a dope version and it's too expensive, so I'm like, I like that idea, I'm just gonna flip some parts of it, so like I just have this piece of art like at my house now. A lot of times I'll paint stuff and think, oh, this would look sick at the crib, and then I get done and I'm like, maybe not, you know, and then it just goes in the pile, or I sell it, or I give it away, or whatever. Sometimes though, I get a little banger, I'm like, yeah, hang it up. Like I'll be real gassed to do something and I'll finish it, and then it's kind of like, it's kind of lackluster. I think that's just every visual artist has that. Like they see all the flaws and they see all the things they could have done different. I don't know, it's funny. My motivations are pretty simple in terms of art. It hasn't really been like a goal until more recently to even like get on like that, you know what I mean? Like for a long time I was pretty convinced that you're either a gallery dude, or like you're a street dude, or you're like something in like a lane. I didn't really have that, you know what I mean? So I just kind of like stayed to myself and just make art and enjoy it, you know. I didn't think too hard about where it was gonna go. But you know, now I kind of am like, oh, maybe I should like, you know, pick something and aim at it. So now it's kind of getting to be where I'm opening up to wanting to show at galleries and, you know, do whatever. You know, like I'm kind of like a polymath, you know what I mean? Like I got my hands in a lot of different things, and I'm really interested in a lot of different things. So really I just don't have like a direction where I want it to go. I just want like the creative energy to branch into a lot of different mediums, you know what I mean? So, you know, like I want to make some zines, make some more shirts, you know, just do traditional canvases, some murals. Like I want to do it all, you know, just be creative. That's pretty much where I'm at right now, goal-wise. You know, like Michelangelo, kind of, you know, just do all kinds of stuff, or like Da Vinci, you know, design all kinds of stuff. You know? I think that's specifically like a North American kind of United States mentality, you know what I mean? I think it kind of delves into a lot of other ideas that we kind of have just ingrained in the DNA of this country, you know, ideas like Puritanism and, you know, foregoing the idea of humanity and humanness and expressing like joy in being human. Art's a big part of that, you know, music and art and all those things are a super important part of like the human experience, and like the backbone of this country is really steeped in some deep like Puritan mindset that says like those things are bad and they're sinful or whatever. So I think that has a lot to do with why like art's considered to be non-essential, and it's something that, you know, supposedly you have to starve for and you have to like really suffer to make it, you know what I'm saying? Because like if you look at other countries, if you look at like France, you know, it's a backbone of their society, you know what I mean? To where like they pay people to be artists, the government pays people to be artists, and you know, I think it's just kind of like, it's uniquely American, the idea of starving and struggling to create, you know, which is wild. That's crazy to me because we have some, you know, we have some amazing artists. Like, art culture in this country, you know, reverberates around the entire world. Every time we do something here, everybody else like, oh, that's hot, and then copies it, you know, whether it's graffiti or jazz or, you know, skate culture, it doesn't matter what it is. We come up with stuff and it spreads, but then like the people who come up with it here never seem to like get the equity involved, you know? Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like that's something that definitely needs to be reversed, like as common thinking, and I definitely feel like I fell into that trap for a long time of like, you know, don't sell your art for a bunch of money because then people can't afford it. And it's like, well, you know, some people can afford it, you know, and I mean, you can't afford to keep creating if you're starving. So yeah, it definitely needs to be reversed as an idea, you know. It's kind of like an agreement that needs to be made between creators and people who I guess consume their product, you know. So like, creators as a whole, we kind of have to get together and kind of make an agreement to like not lowball ourselves, because, you know, that undercuts the next dude, you know what I mean? If I make a banger ass painting and I sell it for $20 and then some other homie makes something that's dope or, you know, way doper than that, then that kind of, it makes it harder for him to sell his piece if I sell mine for super cheap. So we kind of have to get together and make an agreement to raise our collective standard. And then on the part of people who collect our work, like, stop being cheap, stop undercutting, you know, like this is our heart and our soul, and this is like our whole fabric of our being that goes into creating this stuff. Even if it's something kind of bootleg, and even if it's something that's not super original, like the ability to render an image or render an idea into like this world is like, it's not something everybody can do. It's a unique skill set, and so it's like people need to kind of value that more instead of just like treating it like it's disposable, or, oh, I'm gonna just go up the street to this other dude, he's gonna get it to me cheaper, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't do that. That's just, it's a different, it's a different foundation, you know what I mean? Like, Santa Fe's art is grounded in something that's, I guess, considered more traditional, you know what I mean? Like, they have this whole, you know, ecosystem of galleries, you know, that operate within each other, and, you know, there's like a whole ecosystem set up. Like, we don't really have that here. Like, I think where we stand out and where we shine as an artistic presence is kind of more on like the contemporary tip and kind of the lowbrow tip. Like, we have so many different kinds of artists who are not classically or formally trained that are really dope. And I think that's kind of where we stand apart, but that also makes it harder to, I guess, validate, you know, in some people's eyes. Because some people see it as like, oh, well, you know, if your artistic bio doesn't include like a ton of education and like a ton of, you know, different places where you were featured, then you're not really relevant. I think Albuquerque artists don't really have that. We just figure shit out on our own. And, you know, that's kind of where we run into a problem. We have talent, but just like have a hard time expressing it and showing it to people, you know, or monetizing it. So, you know, Albuquerque in a weird way has like a lot of things in common with, I think, LA, in the way that like, some people never leave LA. Some people never like go outside of their area, you know what I mean? And so they have no idea what else is out there. But it's different here because like, this isn't necessarily a cultural hub. So when you do that, you kind of put yourself at a disadvantage, I guess, you know what I mean? But yeah, no, that's 100% accurate. I do really feel like you need to get out of your city, like, just to kind of at least see that there's people who are immensely talented that aren't necessarily making millions of dollars, and that you don't necessarily need a role model, you just need like vision, you know? And yeah, that's 100% true. Like, I was in Seattle and I got lost walking around. I couldn't find where I parked. And I stumbled on so many galleries, and you know, they had work from like D-Face in there, they had work from Sohyu Otomo, Katsuhiro Otomo's son, you know, the guy who made Akira is like his son, like, and these are just not known spots, you know, these aren't like big ass galleries, you know, these are little tiny like hole in the wall spots. So that kind of made me realize just how big the pond is, you know what I mean? And like coming back here, that really fed like a lot of initial like wanting to actually do something with my work. So it's 100% true, you gotta go out and like, you gotta just see how big that pond really is, you know? That's all it is, bro. It's vision though, that's the difference. One of the big things that I noticed here is that a lot of times people try to like reinvent the wheel, And that's kind of where you get jammed up, is like trying to do something that nobody else has ever done. Everything's been done. It's all been done, bro. There's nothing 100% unique or original. It's all informed or inspired or, you know, a continuation of something. And so I think that like the best thing that we could do is just do something good, bro. Like do something that you consider to be good, like something that feels good and resonates with you, instead of like worrying about like how it's gonna be received, or like if it's, you know, the hottest newest shit. You know, just do something like good, like something that you'd be excited to make. And I think that's why those big ass companies and all these really successful artists are successful. It's because they just did something they were hype on. They didn't worry about like, is this gonna pop? Is this gonna sell? Is this gonna, you know, make me famous? They didn't worry about that at all. They just, you know, made bangers. You know? I just wanted to paint Doom. Honestly, it's mad simple. I grew up listening to Doom amongst a lot of other artists at that time, in like the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. Super experimental time in hip hop, and my personal favorite time in hip hop, like in terms of, you know, graffiti, it got really weird at that point. Music got really weird at that point. Like every part of it, you know, turntablism, DJing got super weird. You had guys like lighting records on fire and cutting themselves with broken records, like weirdo shit, bro. And Doom was like the encapsulation of that experimental essence of hip hop, you know what I mean? And like, I can't think of an artist that resonates with me more. Like he had this whole persona, and it was like a really grimy dude, but he had like a Disney villain quality to him, you know? There was some wholesomeness to it at the same time, and it's just like, there's nothing that I really feel like speaks to me more in terms of like an artistic persona than that dude. And so his passing really just like hit really hard. And I was just like, yo, I just want to do a really good tribute piece just to do it. It had like no other value besides just doing the best version of a piece that I could to commemorate somebody who I think is like the best version of an artist that I can like really think of, you know? Like, that was really it, bro. Like, nothing really too deep about it. Just wanted to make something dope. Yeah, man, like the technique, it's just layering, bro. It's pretty much like, it's as straightforward as I like to get in terms of painting. It's an acrylic painting. I did use a little bit of like acrylic marker just to clean up some of the edges, but literally I just layered the piece up, just like any other acrylic painter would do. There's like really nothing outstanding or different about my approach. The only thing that I would consider to be different was that like I had an intention with my composition. Like I wanted to make something that had painterly aspects to it, but also had kind of a two-dimensional, flat, like, you know, traditional comic book kind of feeling to it. So like the chrome and everything, even though it's got a lot of depth, it still has hard lines to where it looks more illustrated, you know, like everything has some hard lines to it, which you wouldn't really find in traditional portraits. And then the middle section, I really just tried to make it a traditional 4-color like panel, you know, just an OG, you know, comic book panel. So I referenced like, yeah, I think it was Jack Kirby's Doom. I couldn't really tell you for sure. It might be somebody else. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you know, I tried to keep that part very traditional and very in line with just like, you know, the stuff that Doom referenced in terms of like his comics, you know, stuff that you could tell he read some comics, and like the era of comics that he kind of referenced a lot was older. It wasn't so much the newer stuff. So that was really like pretty much it, man. It wasn't anything, like I said, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted to do a good painting, you know. New year, it's 2021. 2020 had a tremendous amount of loss. Everybody took a lot of L's. I'm just hoping that this year we all go forward. I myself, I'm like pretty hungry to create and, you know, just make good shit. That's really all I'm trying to focus on this year. So, you know, just hoping the best for me and for everybody else who's trying to create and make things, and, you know, let's have a good year.